Sunshine and single-seaters, what could be better? And what better place to do it than the racing day here at Assen? Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the fourth event of the season for the incredible Boss GP Racing Series. Scott Woodward's here to guide you through all of the action. And this is not quite track action in real time just yet, but this is what we saw earlier on today. This is an incredible run here for the ex-Schumacher 1997 Ferrari F310B, being demoed by one of the drivers in the field here this weekend, Eric Zek. Now, believe me when I say he is 80 years old, and yet he's driving it still as if he's some 30 years younger. But it's great to have this car that was part of some F1 demonstrations, a part of this incredible racing day that we have here at Assen. And typically, the Boss GP Championship is one of the headline setters, if not the headline setter, just for the spectacle these cars provide. This car, of course, was driven in period by Michael Schumacher and, of course, Eddie Irvine back in 1997. I think it was one of the last John Barnard-designed Ferraris before he went to Arrows for 1998. And this, of course, was the car which Michael Schumacher contested the World Championship, battled all the way to the final race of the season in Jerez alongside Jacques Villeneuve. Then, of course, less is said about Jerez in 1997. Michael Schumacher is probably the better. But even so, this car was still the car that took the fight. It took some great race wins along the way. And, of course, it picked up some really good, strong performances, particularly with both Schumacher and Irvine at the wheel. What a treat it is to have this car as part of the event. And Eric Zek, of course, is also racing in the Boss GP Championship this weekend. He's in a Dallara GP211 chassis, but incredibly, he's got it painted up in exactly the same colour scheme as that of his 1997 Ferrari, so he wants to be a bit matchy-matchy when it comes to his machines. But what a privilege it was to see a proper 1997 Formula 1 car on the field. We've got another one in the field in the shape of the Benetton B917, which leads the championship in the F1 class, being driven by Ulf Eininger. And now we switch to real-world pictures because we're getting set for the first of our two races here at Assen. And you can see the cars already forming up on the grid here in what is beautiful sunshine. And look at the crowd we have as well. Packed to the rafters. This racing day is always a highlight of the Dutch racing calendar, particularly at Assen. And of course, what better headline act in a way to have than Boss GP, big open single-seaters. If you've never seen this championship before, for those who are watching new for the first time, welcome to Boss GP. This is a championship which was born as the original Euro Boss Championship, or Boss Formula, right back in the mid-90s when it was conceived in the UK, and they were particularly racing in the UK on UK circuits. Then they went to Europe, and then sometime along the way there was a bit of a split, but Euro Boss carried on, turning into Boss GP, and since then now it's still a home for not just Formula 1 cars, but also, as you'll see in the field, ex-GP2 and Formula 2 cars, ex-World Series by Renault cars, Dallaras, and even sometimes an occasional Auto GP or A1 GP car, even the occasional IndyCar or Champ car will also pop in here as well. So three classes in this championship, well, four in a way. We've got the top class, which is F1, which we're glad to have back this weekend, seeing as we missed them last time out at Monza. That gave the chance for the other three classes to step up and take centre stage. That was Formula Pro for some of the faster drivers in the Formula class, and Superlights for some of the older cars, such as the older Tartus Dallara TO5 chassis or the Tartus World Series by Renault machines. And also we do have, exceptionally, the oldest car on the grid being a 1991 Lola Formula 3000 car with, of all engines in the back, a 3-litre Cosworth DFV engine. So we're going to give you the lot with this one. We're going to give you V10s, we're going to give you F1 V8 engines, we're going to give you F2 and GP2, V6s and V8s, and we're even going to give you a DFV as well. How about that for variety? So the championship visits 6 different events. We've had 4 already, 2 in Germany at Hockenheim and the Nürburgring. Then we had last time at Monza, the first of 3 events that we'll have at Monza coming up. And then it's here at the Assen circuit in the Netherlands. And then after that, the championship will move on for 2 more rounds, which is where we'll see them compete at Mugello on the 5th to the 7th of September. On the PNK Motorsport weekend, and then Misano for the Misano Historic Racing weekend on the 24th to 26th of October. But this championship has already had plenty of action. There was plenty last time out at Monza, where Howard Schlegelmills, who is the leader in the Formula Pro category, was able to take 2 victories, but he had to do it the hard way, particularly in race 2. He had a fantastic race-long scrap almost with the man he's fighting for in the championship, that being in one of the Dallara GP211 cars. That was being Simone Colombo. Fantastic wheel-to-wheel stuff. It reminded me of the likes of Alonso and Vettel a few years ago when Vettel had 2 wheels on the grass trying to pass. That was Colombo trying to get past Schlegelmills to try and overtake him, and he did have lots of back and forth to make it happen. So really good to see that we've got them back on the grid. But I guess the big attraction, of course, is the F1 cars that we have on the grid. And last time out at Monza, they weren't present. They are back here, and it's the first time that we've had all 3 registered F1 cars on the grid since the opening round at Hockenheim. We only had one, which is the Benetton at the Nürburgring and none at Monza, but all three of them are back in the mix. So we have Ulf Eiringer in the ESBA run Benetton B197. That's the car that was raced in period by the likes of Jean Alesi, Gerhard Berger, and even, as well, Alexander Wirtz. And Wirtz, in his first fledgling part of his F1 career, even took a podium at the British Grand Prix in 1997. Good to see that car back out there as well. The two cars which are back on the grid for the first time since Hockenheim, one of them is car number 1. You can't really miss him, Ingo Gerstel, in the incredible sounding Toro Rosso STR1. Of course, those who know F1 fans and anoraks like me, one of that car started out initially being run a year before in 2005 as the first ever Red Bull chassis, the RB1, and then it was given to Toro Rosso after they bought Minardi, and there was a unique situation where they didn't seem to get an engine deal in time together to get a V8 engine, so they got special dispensation from the FIA to run a delimited or a rev limited V10. So effectively, even though the regs changed to V8 engines, the 2006 Toro Rosso STR1, I'm certain, is still now the last F1 car to ever race within regulations with a V10 engine. Even though the V10 era officially ended in 2005, that car still had another year's worth before it then took the Ferrari engine from 2007 onwards for a couple of seasons. So the F1 cars are back. Ulf Eininger leads the championship there with 98 points, ahead of Ingo Gerstel in Austria in 52 points, and Thomas Jakubek in the Lotus T127. Now, that car is essentially one of the youngest F1 cars that we've had in Boss GP history. It's a Lotus T127. That's one of the Lotus cars that debuted in 2010 when they brought in the 3 new teams. So we've got an actual Lotus T127 2010 chassis up and running with a V8 engine, and it is another great sounding car on the grid, and that will certainly be a great spectacle to watch as it goes on. In terms of the other classes, in the Formula Pro category, it's Harold Schlegelmills from Latvia in the HS Engineering World Series 3.5 Dallara T12. He leads with 153 points compared to 141 for Samuele Colombo, his nearest rival in the championship, with 141. Then it's a 2-point scrap between Max Cucurese, who's in the youngest GP2 F2 car in the field, in fact the youngest car full stop, which is the Dallara F218. That's the previous generation Formula 2 car that was taken out of service just a couple of seasons ago. And he's battling with Marco Ghiotto, no relation to Luca Ghiotto, the ex-F2 Formula 2 champion, I believe. That's in 4th, just 2 points separating them, 114 to 112. And then we go to, behind them, Michael Fischer and Thomas Zeltner, who got some decent results at Monza, and they now keep themselves 7 points apart as we go into the next race of the season in Formula Pro. In the Formula class, which is in the same sort of cars, but a different category for some of the more arguably faster drivers, although these cars will mix amongst each other as quick as they can. Paul O'Connell, the Irishman, for the also with HS Engineering in his World Series car, he has a commanding lead in the championship, 66 points on 156, compared to Stefan Isinger-Sievold, who had a really tough Monza, retired from race 1 after he spun off at Parabolica, and then just dropped back with issues and only scored 6 points from the second race, which means he's lost a lot of ground, and he's also falling into the clutches of third place Martin Kindler. So Kindler, the Jensen Motorsport GP211 Dallara chassis, is on 84 points compared to 19. Then it's Stefan Glasser in the Scuderia Palladio GP211. That's on 80 points, and he's 2 points ahead of Marco Minelli in the AM Sport System, the World Series 3.5 V8 machine in the car as well. And in the Superlights class, which is some of the older chassis which aren't GP2 cars or Auto GPs or F2 cars, it's Henry Klauznitzer, who is in the field this weekend. He is in the Mild 7 inspired livery WF Racing Tartus Formula Renault V6 with 141 points, and that is a 33 point advantage, or 43 point advantage. You can see there is car 118. That is the car that leads the Superlights category, from Stefan Scho, who was missing at Monza, but so far has taken 4 wins every time he's raced. So every single race he's competed in, he's won the Superlights category. So he'll be in his 1991 Lola T9150, the Formula 3000 car with the 3-litre Cosworth DFV engine in the back of it. Third is Walter Colacino, who only made his first appearance of the season at Monza and completed 1 race, but he's third in the points. From Andreas Hassler, then Joachim Schorsch, and then Sebastiano Citani, who's in the Lola F3000, but that was the Alfa Romeo powered car as well. So the grid is now starting to clear as the safety car pulls off, and we're getting set for the first of our 2 Boss GP Formula races. We wait for the red light at the top of the screen to go off, and then the cars will be off onto their formation lap as the green flag will fly very shortly. And then we'll get set to run through the grid as they head off on their formation lap. It will be a rolling start, and it will be poleman Ingo Gerstel in the incredible V10 Toro Rosso STR1 that will set them off from pole position. The cars then move off onto the formation lap, and in a moment's time we will give you the grid as they get used to this Circuit TT Assen, which is going to be quite a circuit for them to handle. Now, in some occasions, we would have the F1 cars start ahead on a rolling start of the rest of the field, but it looks like for this one, they're going to start them off in where they qualified overall. And it should be quite an interesting affair as to how they get on. So off onto their formation lap around the 2.822 mile Circuit TT Assen course. And it'll be interesting to see how they tackle this circuit. Very fast, very flat, couple of dips and elevation changes. But in general, it is quite a circuit that is easy enough to handle for most cars and should give us quite a good spectacle, particularly with some of the cars that we have in this field today. So the grid then, with all starting together, it is Ingo Gerschel who will start on pole position. He took a commanding pole by some 4.5 seconds from Howard Schlegelmilch, the top form on a Pro Class car, in his Dallara World Series chassis. Sveti Colombo and Paul O'Connell come next on the second row of the grid, GP2 and World Series car. Max Kukurezi in the F218 Dallara starts 5th, alongside Michael Fischer on the third row of the grid. Then it's Thomas Zeltner and Marco Giotto on row 4. Then next to the F1 cars is Ulf Eininger in the Benetton. He starts 9th alongside Stefan Glasser. Then it's Walter Stedding and Jens Renstrup making a welcome return to the championship this weekend on the 6th row of the grid. Stefan Eisiger-Sievold, he really needs a good result this weekend after he had the problems at Monza. He starts on the 7th row alongside Roland Ruprechter. But it's Stefan Schow and Thomas Jakobek in the Lotus T127. And then right at the back of the field, Henry Klausnitzer on the 9th row of the grid in the 118 machine. 17th car on the field. We had about 19 entered, but looks like we've got a couple missing potentially after qualifying. The cars make their way around behind the safety car. They'll form up in 2x2 formation. Safety car pulls in and get ready for some power and noise. It's Boss GP, it's Assen, it's racing day, it's race 1 of round 4 of the 2025 season. Watch for the red lights when they go out. An explosion of power will begin. Race 1 is underway. It's a cracking start from Gerschel. Pulls across in the Toro Rosso and leads down towards turn 1. Schlegelmilch holds second place, but under attack from Colombo and O'Connell down towards the first corner. It's a fairly fast right-hander, but it is quite tight at the same time. Out to the first couple of corners, 1 or 2 cars running wide, but it is the Toro Rosso who leads the way. It's then Schlegelmilch in second place. Colombo has held third from O'Connell. Kukurezi is there in 5th, and there goes O'Connell down the inside into the left-hander at the hairpin, and up to 3rd place he goes. And get the undercut, he'll hold on. Fantastic sound of Mechachrome and Zytec V8s. They come out of the hairpin, mixed in with V10s and V8s, and even a V6 in there as well. So Gerschel leads the way in the Toro Rosso. There's more battles going on here as Kukurezi is half going on the attack of Paul O'Connell, but at the same time is also coming under threat from Max Kukurezi in the Dallara 18 chassis. Also in there too with a clean start, looks like is Michael Fischer in the first of those 2 Rothmans inspired livery machines. Coming out to the end of the first couple of corners, going down towards the left-hander at turn 9 and then through turn 10, which is a double apex right-hander, but a fast and flat-out section coming out of turns 12 and 13. You can hear in the background the screaming, wailing V10 of the Toro Rosso of Ingo Gerschel has control of this race as they head down towards the chicane for the first time, and it is Gerschel who leads the way then. Out across the line to end lap number 1. Gerschel leads the way. Schlegelmilch keeping pace. So the Dallara actually not letting Gerschel get away here. Young Howard Schlegelmilch, the Latvian driver, is keeping him in his sights. The gap is only 0.6 seconds between the two of them as they come up towards the beginning of lap number 2. O'Connell is up to 3rd. Colombo's down to 4th from where he was on the 2nd row of the grid. Kukurezi is 5th, but it's Fischer, Zeltner, Giotto's made a couple of places lost and he's down to 8th. Eininger is 2nd in the F1 class and into 9th. And then Stedding in P10 rounds up the class. In the Superlights category, it's Stefan Schow from the class pole position who leads the way from Henry Klausnitzer. So through this kind of S-bend here as they go through. Gerschel's car has a bit more pace on the straights with the V10, but it seems that maybe in the corners, Schlegelmilch's car is a little more usable. He's a little more confident. You can see how much harder he's pushing as he comes out of this section here. And down towards the left-hander of 9 into this double apex 10 and 11. It's a fast right-hander as you come out of 10 and opens up on 11. This is the replay of the start. So Gerschel pulled across and held the line. Schlegelmilch put the block on both O'Connell and Colombo. That invited Kukurezi to go up the inside and hold off the Dallara of Michael Fischer just behind him as well. And this is the move up the inside that Paul O'Connell made, slipping past as they turned into the left-hander at turn 5. And then further back, this was the battles going on as O'Connell was ahead of Colombo and Cucurese. So that battle was brewing nicely for third position on the opening lap as we switch back to live pictures. And once again, at the end of the second lap, it's now half a second as Schlegel Mills on the first proper flying lap sets the fastest lap of the race, a tenth and a half quicker, nearly 2/10 quicker, but Ingo Gerstel. So Schlegel Mills is the measure of this, as we see now. This is Cucurese and Fischer battling away for fifth position. Fischer looks for the up and under on the exit, but has to be stuck behind the gearbox of Dallara as they come out of turn 5. Now the sprint down towards the S-bend of 6 and 7 and 8. There goes O'Connell and Colombo in the foreground, but it's now the battle here as we've got in there too Fischer. Also Zeltner and Giotto are scrapping over 7th place, and Giotto has slipped through past the 44 machine. So the pink and silver of Thomas Zeltner, who has dropped back now to 8th, Giotto up to 7th. And back with this battle that we've got going on here between Cucurese and Fischer as they turn out of turn 9 into 10 and 11. Come now down the hill towards the end of the chicane, end of lap number 3, and just some of the sounds these cars make is absolutely superb. On to the beginning of lap number 4 now. Gap is now just about 2/10 per second. It was close across the line, but Schlegel Mills is really applying the pressure here. Now, if I'm honest, I thought the Toro Rosso would pull away, but the pace that Schlegel Mills had not only sees him as the class of the field, but keeping a Toro Rosso Formula 1 car honest is some seriously impressive stuff. This is great work for Schlegel Mills to keep it close, but just off the corner, the grip and go and the punch of that V10 gives him the traction and the speed he needs to pull away. But it's in the corners where Schlegel Mills is slightly more nimble, slightly more usable, shall we say. Dallara World Series car. Gerstel maybe not pushing that car at 10/10, he's pushing as hard as he feels he wants to, enough. Whereas Schlegel Mills feels like he's pushing it at 10/10. He really is trying to keep up with this Toro Rosso car as much as possible. And they've got 4 seconds over the rest of the field back in third place. You've got O'Connell back in third from Colombo in 4th. Cucurese is 5th with Fischer in 6th. Giotto went up to 7th. We saw him make the move on Thomas Zeltner at turn 5. And then it's Ulf Eininger and Walter Stedding in the top 10. I always feel bad talking over the V10 because it just sounds so good. It's a magnificent sounding machine. It is pretty much the last F1 car they ever raced. We've got a yellow flag at turn 4, we're being told on the timing screen. Something's happened here. Cross the line they go again. It's looking still pretty close at the front. Gap is still half a second. And Ingo, on the exit of the corner, likes to take that tighter line towards the pit wall to get a shorter run to the flag. Now, what is the reason for turn 4? That's the reason why. It is the 116 car. That is 118, in fact. That's Henry Klauznitzer. He's the man that's leading the super lights category. Shake of the head to say, well, that didn't go to plan, did it? And as the top 2 sweep past, I have a feeling that might well be safety car territory, because that's in a relatively dangerous position. You slide off. Nope, that's not going to work, Henry. You can spin your wheels all you like, sunshine. That's going nowhere. He's firmly beached in the gravel. Now, whilst that's going on, this is interesting. That is Cucurese defending. He's defending from Fischer. And I'd like to think that Fischer saw the yellow flags and withdrew, because that's not going to work. Now they've cleared it. He's now under big pressure from Giotto. Giotto pulls levels to head down the back straight towards the chicane, pulls himself in front, and Dallara is into position. So that is now Giotto up into 6th position. It is Fischer down to 7th, and now immediately this is a reminiscent of what we saw back at Monza, and I was about to say that Cucurese and Giotto are about to go hammer and tongs, but safety car has been deployed. Oh, and that's a bit tetchy. Now, I think he's passed just at the safety car board after they went out, so I think he may have to give that position back, because on my timing screen might be slightly ahead from my feed, but safety car came out, and on the timing screen, it came there as Henry Klauznitzer says, well, are you going to help me or what? I'm here stuck in the gravel, give me a push. And the marshal's like, sorry, buddy, can't help you. So sadly, Henry Klauznitzer will score nothing from this race, and that will certainly give an advantage to the rest of the championship, the drivers that are racing in Henry Klauznitzer. That will give also an advantage to Stefan Schow as well. And of course, him being in the lead of the class of Superlights, that will certainly give him another 25 points to benefit from as well. Cars then make their way around the safety car now. It's a chance for a bit of a breather after those early action. Ingo Gerstel then leads the way by 2.7 seconds, what he did at the check at the start and finish line. But now, of course, they're all bunched up again. This will give the chance for O'Connell to also get back into the mix. Colombo's there in 4th. Cucurese's holding 5th. The man on the move I'd see to watch for is going to be Marco Ghiotto. Now, he has given that place back. He's maybe been advised that you passed just after the safety car boards and flags came out on the timing screen, so give the position back to save a penalty, or at least he did that to save risking the eye of the stewards. So he's now moved back to 6th position, and he was under threat as well from Michael Fisher. And then you have Thomas Zeltner, that very unique silver and pink Dallara GP211 chassis. Good to see that's in the mix. And Thomas himself, if I look at some of my notes that I have here for the championship, as the Henry Klotzlitzer car gets moved away. It's not quite how Henry wants to end race 1. Zeltner, debut season in Boss GP. He's raced before in Formula 3 Cup and Formula 3 Trophy the last couple of years. He's also raced in similar series to Boss GP, shall we say. Was a race winner in that elsewhere. But good to see him now applying his craft and dipping his toe into Boss GP this season. Forming up under the safety car. In terms of classes, Paul O'Connell still leads the way in the Formula category. In Formula Pro, it is still Howard Schlegelmills, although it says here that Howard Schlegelmills' car's running in Open. I just noticed that on the timing screen, but he has been running in Pro as well. So if he's in Open, that's going to be a different class altogether, where he had been running previously in Formula Pro. So that's interesting. So under the safety car, as the ever hard-working marshals quickly recover Henry Klotzlitzer's Tartar chassis away. So that car should hopefully be fixed and ready for race 2 tomorrow. And that gives a bit of a reset, a bit of a breather for those who are competing in this race. Now let's see what's possible here as we come into the safety car run. Race order then, to remind you, Ingo Gerschel leads the F1 class and is overall leader. Is then Howard Schlegelmills second, who's also in the Open class, and Paul O'Connell leads the Formula class in third. That will mean Simone Colombo leads the Formula Pro class, because even that Schlegelmills is classified as an Open class driver. Then it'll be Marco Ghiotto, Michael Fisher, Thomas Zeltner, Walter Stedding, and Stefan Eisinger-Sievold, who maybe not as high as he'd like to be, but he's up there in 10th position, propping up the top 10. Stefan Glasser, 11th. Jens Renstrup, 12th. Ronan Ruprechter is 13th. And then in the super lights category, there's only one car left in that class at the moment, and it is Stefan Schow. He looks like he's on course for his 5th win of the season from 5 races. I remind you that every single race he started, he has managed to get to the checker flag and won it in class. He's taken 25 points from every single race that he has finished. Just a chance for the cars to keep their tyres as warm as possible, their brakes as warm as possible, keep the tyre pressures up as much as you can. And looks like, I think, safety car is about to come in this lap in a moment, so that means that Ingo Gerschel will become the safety car by default. He now gets to decide when to pull the pin, when to get this race back underway. And he will know that Howard Schlegelmills will be right on his tail to try and gain from the restart. Depends how quickly he can get back underway. He decided to go now just before the chicane. Foot to the floor, wiggles his way through right, left, and then right again, back to in front of the massive grandstand. Green flag in the air, and Boss GP is back to green flag conditions, back underway at Assen with just over 10 minutes to go in towards turn 1. So Gerschel, Schlegelmills, O'Connell, Colombo, Cucurese, that's the top 5. And Ghiotto also putting the pressure on Cucurese. Fisher is there in 7th position, keeping chase. There's a bit of a compression here between the likes of 3rd down to about 7th or 8th. They're kind of leaving Thomas Zeltner behind a little bit, and they've also left Walter Stedding behind because he's been really asleep on the restart. Stedding was 2.3 seconds back when he came across the line, so wasn't really paying too much attention. But there's your leading group of 7, headed by the Toro Rosso. Then Schlegelmills, O'Connell, Colombo, Cucurese, now under threat from Ghiotto. I was mentioning just before the safety car, but these two did go at it hammer and tongs, back and forth between the two of them in race 2 in particular. And I think it was Cucurese who got the better of Ghiotto that day. So I wonder if Ghiotto's got a little bit of redemption here to try and pick up with 9.5 minutes to go. Through turns 10 and 11. Out of it again. Now another high-speed run through the kink of 12, through 13 and 40, and the fast left-hander of 15. Then they'll wiggle their way back towards 16, 17 and 18. What a sound this championship makes. No wonder it's an attraction for so many at this racing day weekend here at Assen. Bit of a wayward run through the chicane for Cucurese. That's going to give Giotto the opportunity to try and get through. It's still 0.4 of a second as Stuggenmills carries a lot more speed through turn 1 than Gerstel feels comfortable doing. This might be one of the key battles to watch out for. This is Cucurese in the F218 chassis being pressured and hounded now by Marco Giotto. Into turn 3, a little bit wide. This could be the opportunity that Giotto senses. He's just looming around to try and find it. And watch behind them because Michael Fischer's gone away. Zeltner locks up in the background but stays 7th, but that will flat spot his Pirelli tyres. Of course, big thanks to Pirelli for being partners of the championship and tyre suppliers too. As we see, Colombo weaving this way and that. He wants to make a move. He's looking for this up the inside. Looking to make the move. Can he make it stick? He forces Cucurese, given the space, and Cucurese goes across the runoff area. Has to hold on to it, keeps his foot in. And Giotto, I think, might just back off here unless Cucurese goes defensive, which he does. Cucurese not prepared to give this up by an inch. He might argue that corner was mine. And Giotto didn't give him any space. That might be his argument, but safety car's been deployed again. And that's the reason why car 17 is off the road. So out of the race has gone the 17 of Stefan Glasser. So the second time we have a safety car. Glasser's still up behind the wheel. Now, his car's got his wheels pointing to the left. I can't quite tell if he's actually hit anything or if it's just a mechanical issue. I would bet mechanical because I can't see any obvious signs of damage on that car. At least not from the rear. But that's a shame. Stefan Glasser, who's off there. This is the replay of what happened here. So there went Giotto diving up the inside. And Cucurese kind of saw it at the last minute and thought, I've got no choice. I have to go across the runoff area. Arguably, a driver like Giotto, he might argue unfair advantage, but that's for the stewards to deal out. End of the day, it's just 2 drivers. But look at that. You saw just how late he spooked Cucurese. Put the car right on the apex at the last possible moment, and he's entitled to do that. And Cucurese did not expect it. And, of course, he is only a young driver, about 18 years old, so he's not as experienced, shall we say, as Marco Giotto is. But still, he gave as good as he got and just darted out wide. And that was the result. Cucurese has stayed in front. Giotto will be keen to try and pounce on him on the restart. So no change really in the positions. Still Gerstel leading the way. And the classes themselves, of course, the F1 class is open for any F1 cars which are built and raced from 1996 onwards. If you look back at the history of the championship, you will sort of seen back when it was first starting in 95, 96, 97, 98, when it was a UK-based championship mainly and had the occasional international round it would throw in somewhere on the continent, you would get even F1 cars that were barely a year or two old. You would get, in 1998, 99, you'd get 96 or 97 Tyrrells racing, you'd get Benettons, you would get Jordans, you would get all sorts of cars. You get sometimes Simtex, you would get Pacifics, you would get all sorts of these kind of lower, smaller teams. Arrows would be in the mix as well. You'd just get Formula 3000 cars and even possibly even 1 or 2 turbo F1 cars would turn up as well. And that's the great thing about this championship. It's not just F1 cars. It welcomes older Formula 2 chassis, GP2 chassis, World Series by Renault chassis, older Tartus World Series chassis as well. Not just that, but the Dallara cars as well. We have an Auto GP car, which is usually raced by Jean-Christophe Peyre, who's not here this weekend, the Frenchman. That's an Auto GP car that was born out of being an A1 GP car. And of course, there was also a period when those cars became Fauna Acceleration 1, which is a unique little championship to continue using those cars. And then we get to even the case where you can have, and we have had, Indy cars and Champ cars. We've had the Toro Rosso, the Paynos DPO set, Toro Rosso, the Paynos DPO7 at points in time, the last Champ car before the merger with IndyCar. We've had before Dallara chassis. I think we've also had a G-Force chassis in the past as well. So again, this is such an open championship to big single seaters. And then you can see right at the back of the field, Stefan Show in this superbly well put together 1991 Lola T9150. That's a proper old school Formula 3000 car, the early 90s. And the best part is, as we've said, the engine in the back of it is one of the best racing engines, arguably of all time, considering how much success it had and how diverse it was. The 3-litre Cosworth DFV. Doesn't get much better than that. That was where they found a home for those engines after they were pretty much were made non-competitive by the fact that by the time they got to the 80s, F1 had gone turbo, and if you didn't have a turbo on a Formula 1 car, you weren't really competitive. So in that sense, it's good that those engines got repurposed, they were reused, and they were used for quite a long time, the DFV engines. There were variants of it, the DF Farm, DFZ, that was used as well. Developments of that engine in some ways, or ancestors of that age. And there is Stefan Show's car, as we see. Light clouds ahead, but it's still bright blue sunny skies, perfect conditions for a Boss GP event. Jack Racing Day basking in this magnificent Dutch sun that shine here. I'll take my teeth out and put them back in again. So safety car will be coming in, I'm certain, shortly. There is about less than 4 minutes to go. So that will mean that if Schlegel-Mills wants to get on with this and maybe give Gerschel a few more headaches, he'll have to get on with it. Safety car's coming in this lap. So again, this is now the choice for Gerschel to decide when he wants to get underway. Safety car lights are out. Now we get to see Toro Rosso versus Dallara World Series car. Gerschel versus Schlegel-Mill, round 3. 3.5 minutes to go. Safety car pulls in. The crowd anticipates the restart as Gerschel brings the V10 Toro Rosso out of the final chicane, back onto the straight, and with just over 3 minutes to go and change, it's back to racing. Now then, the key battle I'm going to watch here. I'll see if a column can stay with Schlegel-Mills, but I want to see the battle here for 4th between Colombo, Cucurese and Giotto, because Giotto has now pressured Cucurese twice. He wants that 5th position, and he'll have to be pretty on his toes here with Cucurese to defend, but also Giotto to try and make it through and put a challenge in. He's a little bit asleep on the restart because he hasn't kept with Cucurese, and rather than going on the attack and being the hunter, he's now the hunted, coming under threat from Michael Fischer. Fischer now with a better run in the Dallara World Series car. His teammate Stefan Isinger-Sievold is back in 9th. He's just behind Thomas Zeltner's silver and pink machine. You just saw second blue and white Dallara World Series car flash through in the background. It's just every single time that V10 engine sweeps past, it's just such an evocative sound. It's crazy to think V10s existed 20 years ago. It seems like yesterday. So this battle developing. There goes Colombo. He's clearing 4th position. He's got the pace advantage over the cars behind. It's Cucurese that's now lost ground again to Giotto after that good restart. And here they come through the back section here, through turns 13, 14 and 15. This could be the opportunity he's looking for. Giotto in tow Cucurese up towards the chicane. If he can be close enough to make a dive, he'll go for it. And he's running out of time because as he comes across the line, when they start this, what will be, I think, the penultimate lap of the race, it's nose to tail between Colombo, Cucurese, Giotto and Fischer. And now look, Fischer's on the attack of Colombo. He has to go defensive down towards turn 1. Fischer darts out, has a look, but there's no room to get through. Giotto more firmly focused on what's ahead of him, chasing after Cucurese. He feels he has more pace. In towards turns 4 and 5, Cucurese takes the wide approach. That could be the opportunity Giotto needs. But Fischer is in there too as well, looking up the inside, and he was very deep to really make a move, but Giotto just cut across the apex at the right time. And again, he's more fully focused at a point, looking at the gearbox of Cucurese than to defend from Fischer behind him. But Fischer's in tow here, down towards the next corner. Again to the outside, putting Cucurese offline here as they sweep through the S-bend. And these two different generations of Formula 2 and GP2 car, very evenly matched in these hands as they come out through turns 10 and 11. And again, looking to the inside line, here comes Giotto. Now he's firmly alongside. This is the move he needs for 5th position. Up the inside into turn 9. Can he make the move stick as he turns through? And the answer is yes, he's done it. Up into 5th position, and now here comes Fischer up the inside. Cucurese runs out wide, and Fischer takes the place. He's into 6th position. So another key move. Cucurese loses 2 places in 2 corners, and he's down to 7th position. And look at that, the pace that Giotto has immediately is coming back as Cucurese gets back into the tow of Fischer, down towards the S-bend to head on to the final lap of the race. Giotto looks like he's much more comfortable, not stuck behind Cucurese, but Fischer's going after Giotto now as they come across the last lap of the race. Gerschel leads the way out in front by 2.8 seconds from Harald Schlegel-Mills as they come into turn 1 for the final time. O'Connell is 3rd, Colombo is 4th. We're watching the fight for 5th between Giotto, Fischer and Cucurese. Zeltner is still 8th, Isinger-Sievold is 9th, and then it's Walter Stedding in the top 10. Brenstrup is 11th, Ruprechter is 12th as Fischer has another look up the inside in towards turn 5. Has to square off the corner and get back under power. The World Series car swerving under power, and they're both dropping Cucurese. So the power he had, maybe he's just lost power on the setup or just not at the same pace with his tyres. Either way, Cucurese not really able to keep up with the cars that are battling in front of him. This is going to go, I think, all the way to the end. There may well be some strengths and weaknesses to both of these cars. But both of them sounding fantastic with those singing V8 engines. As we come towards the end of this race, it looks as though it's going to be a victory for the Toro Rosso. And how good would that be to see Ingo Gerschel, who will take his 3rd win of the season when he comes to cross the line very shortly. come to the checkered flag, and victory in race 1 of Boss GP at Assen goes to Ingo Gerstel, but Toro Rosso is victorious in race 1. And now the sprint to the line. This is now between Colombo and O'Connell has lost out to Colombo. Colombo got him on the final lap of the race and snatches an overall podium. It'll still be individual class wins. It'll still be the Formula victory for Paul O'Connell in 4th and the Formula Pro victory for Simone Colombo in 3rd place. Across the line comes that scrap for 5th. Giotto does beat Fischer to the line. Then it's Cucurese in 7th place, Zeltner in 8th. And then it's Stefan Eisinger-Seevold and Walter Stedding who complete the top 10. What was a rather eventful first race of the weekend for the Boss GP machines. Across the line comes Seevold to pick up 10th place. Stedding takes 11th. Renstrup takes 12th. Good to see him back on the grid this weekend. No, in fact, it's Ruprechter in 11th place. So Renstrup took 12th and lost a place in the final laps. And I can also confirm when he comes across the line shortly, but it should be Stefan Schow who will be the only Superlights car taking the flag. And this is the move that we saw here. This is basically losing 5th position to Marco Giotto, and again, just forced the issue. This time, he tried to make this move and did temporarily when the safety car came out, but this time into turn 9, that was the insistent move. I'm coming up the inside, and there he goes in to make a move. And because of that, Cucurese was so rattled and so offline and off form that through up the inside went Fischer, took full advantage, and that was 2 places lost in the space of 3 corners on the penultimate lap. But Cucurese from there just didn't have the pace to retaliate. And this is what happened on the last lap, or the last couple of laps. This is where we saw Colombo get past O'Connell. Now, how did he do it? He got a great run, diving up the inside, and caught O'Connell completely off guard into the final chicane. That was on the last lap of the race. So a last lap steal for Simone Colombo to pick up the Formula Pro victory, because Schlegel Mills ran as an open class car. So we've got class winners in the first 4 positions. But there, with fist in the air, car number 1 in position number 1 in the F1 class. Ingo Gerstel, again, with that beautiful Toro Rosso STR01 taking the overall victory. And in the early stages, he was kept honest by Schlegel Mills. The gap was a pretty back and forth of around about half a second or so. Good to see that these cars still being driven as hard and fast as they were when they were in service, particularly the GP2 and World Series cars. They were always fantastic spectacles to watch on a Grand Prix weekend or any given weekend they were racing. Remember the World Series cars when in its last incantation was competing as a part of the World Endurance Support package. And these cars now at least have a home. They have a place to race now, rather than being grandfathered in workshops or in garages or in places where they've been undercovers and virtually never used. At least it's great that we've got Boss GP that allows the platform for these cars and drivers to use it pretty well. So let's quickly run through the results then before we head to sign off from race 1. It's Ingo Gerstel who takes the victory after the 22 minutes worth of racing, 14 laps completed. He was 4.8 seconds ahead of Harold Schlegel Mills in 2nd place, who was the best of the only open class car, and he finished 2nd and also took the fastest lap, one of the fastest laps of the race anyway, towards the end. It was Simone Colombo making that last lap move to take 3rd position from Paul O'Connell, but even so, it doesn't change who wins the respective classes. So Colombo wins the Formula Pro class, O'Connell wins the Formula class. Then Marco Giotto rounding off the top 5 after his late battle with Michael Fischer and Massimiliano Cucurese. So Max finishing in 7th place behind Fischer after he was passed just after Giotto got through. It's then 8th place for Thomas Zeltner, 9th for Stefan Eisinger-Seevold. Walter Stedding rounds out the top 10, and Roland Ruprechter takes 11th from Jens Renstrup. Stefan Schow, who is the last classified finisher because he took the Superlights victory in the nice 91 at Lola with the DFV engine. And 4 cars that we lost, sadly. Stefan Glasser, whose car pulled up at the final chicane. We also lost the 2 F1 cars that were behind Gerstel. So sadly, we lost Ulf Enninger in the Benetton and Thomas Jakubek in the Lotus, who both pulled into the pit lane. So unfortunately, technical issues with both of the other F1 cars meant they had to retire early. But I hope, fingers crossed, whatever the issues are, they are fixable and able to get those 2 cars back out for race 2. And we also lost Henry Klorznitzer, who frustratingly went off the road at turn 5, and despite protestation to get the marshals to help him, he couldn't go any further and had to be craned away, unfortunately, behind the barriers as well. So, racing complete for the Boss GP. Not complete for the day, of course, for Jack's Racing. The spectators will watch on for the next few races that come up here this weekend. But that is the conclusion of Boss GP's action. If you've been watching on the stream, thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the live coverage of the Assen race here. If you want to tune in, of course, tomorrow, you can do. Make sure that you subscribe to the Boss GP channel and also turn on the notifications bell so that when we go live, you'll be told when to do so as well. Or just come to the Boss GP channel as well. When we go live, you'll be able to see and take a notification on the stream or when it goes live as well, to be specifically notified when that gets going. But a great victory for Ingo Gerstel. Can he make it 2 from 2? He is the defending champion. Can he get his quest for F1 glory in that class in Boss GP back underway and throw you back into contention. We'll see that tomorrow in race 2 for Assen here for Boss GP. But for myself, Scott Woodward, and all of us here at the Netherlands, thanks for watching, and we'll see you for more Boss GP action tomorrow. Bye for now.